What's going on, guys? I'm joined by Eric Reid. He is the television play-by-play broadcaster for the Miami Heat, and this is his third time winning the award. So, congratulations again, Eric, and thank you for joining me.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
So, Eric, what was your career path like on your way to where you are now? Did you always know that you wanted to be in the sports media industry?
I knew for a long time, Sahil. I think growing up as a young man in New York with a dad who was blessed to be a sports fan, I always joked that my first football game was from the baby carriage, and my dad was a season ticket holder for the New York Jets and the New York Knicks. He
Wow.
got his Jets season tickets, I think, in 1965, the year the Jets drafted a quarterback named Joe Namath.
Right.
And the Knicks tickets were about 6 to 8 rows behind the basket, Seventh Avenue, end of Madison Square
Wow.
Garden. And I sort of grew up in section 110 at Shea Stadium and in those courtside seats behind the basket at Madison Square Garden. And I was an avid sports fan. I played basketball as a young man growing up on Long Island. But I found out early that my playing was only going to take me so far.
Yeah.
And I became infatuated at an early age of listening to games on radio. And I just fell in love with the art of radio play by play and started thinking about a career in it as early as high school. And then went off to Ithaca College and majored in communications. And that's where things really began for me.
That's incredible. So, and you mentioned too how you kind of grew up around sports. So you kind of had you were born into it, and you had what an experience you had being able to be in the
Oh,
garden
listen,
all the time.
my two amazing experiences
Yeah,
that chartered my course. I
yeah,
was 11 and a half years old at the AFL championship game on a cold December day in 1968 when the Jets beat the Raiders.
right.
And my dad looked at me and said something about going to the Super Bowl in Miami. And I said, bring me back a program. He says, you're coming with me.
Wow.
And to be at that historic Super Bowl III all these years ago, and realize now it's one of the most historic games in the history of professional football,
Right.
created the merger between the AFL and the NFL, and a sacred childhood memory. And then later that year, the Knicks win their first championship in 1969. And there I am with my dad, 7, 8 rows behind the basket the night Willis Reed emerged from the tunnel, made the first two baskets of the game, didn't score again. And I was an eyewitness to that Knicks
Wow.
first title. So that's how it all began as a fan of those games. And then the pursuit of a career as a sportscaster, would begin later.
Now it's no wonder why you became a sportscaster. It's funny too hearing you talk about those Knicks teams because a lot of my friends are Knicks fans, but we're obviously a lot younger, so they haven't seen nearly any of the success. But they all go back and watch like highlights of the games like you're talking about of those players, like Willis Reed and stuff like that. So that's very interesting to hear, and I'm sure they're going to be ecstatic when I tell them about that. Um, so Eric, what would you consider to be your favorite part? Oh, sorry. What was that?
No, I was going to say all these years later, now that Walt Frazier, who is the great Nick guard, I
Right.
think he had 36 points, 19 assists, and in the Game 7 win over the Lakers to get the Knicks their first title. And now he's the longtime Nick color analyst,
Right.
and I've gotten to know him on a professional and personal level. And it's sort of an interesting thrill to be colleagues and friends with somebody you looked up to as a young man growing up watching him play.
Truly. Yeah. I can't imagine. And you're doing that now. So that is incredible to hear. Um, so Eric, what would you consider to be, and I'm sure there's a million things, but what would you consider to be your favorite part of your job?
The calling of each game. It started for me as a junior at Ithaca College. I started working with the Cornell University basketball team. And believe it or not, I have not missed a basketball season since. I've done it for somebody, first Cornell, then at Providence College, then in the Big East, and now for the last 33 years in Miami. So
Wow.
close to 45 years of doing play by play. And I still enjoy doing every game and connecting with each game. And all the preparation all play by play announcers do, it's really the spontaneity of the job that keeps it fresh and keeps it exciting all the time, because you never know how a game is going to go, but it's your job to react and respond accordingly.
Right. And you mentioned how you've been, part of the Miami Heat organization for the last 33 years. And it makes me think about all the incredible teams and players that have played on the Heat. You going not even going back that far, going back in the last 2 decades. You had Dwayne Wade, Shaq, LeBron, Bosh, and then even last year, a team that went to the championship. Obviously, they lost to the Lakers, but a team that no one saw even making it that far. Which team or season or player was your favorite to just go there, go to work every day and watch?
Every season, every team, every game I look forward to. But, it's been an incredible journey that we've been, sort of blessed to make with so many members of what we call Heat Nation.
Right.
Started 33 years ago. There's 8 original employees still with the Heat. But to go from an expansion franchise, and all that goes into that, the folklore of that first expansion season when we lost our first 17 games, and finally won in game 18. I think it was the 18th year that we won our first championship. So it really changed. The journey of expansion is romantic. Nobody would ever want to repeat it, but it's really a cool thing to help blaze a new NBA trail and market. And we had the opportunity to do that in Miami. But things really changed when Mickey Arison took over ownership and put Pat Riley in place as the president of his organization. That's like 25 years ago. And there's been so much consistency in the organization since that. And it's been a championship seeking and contending franchise since Pat got here in the late 90s. Never got there until 06 in the finals and beat Dallas for the first championship. And then, of course, the coming together of LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, those 4 consecutive finals trips resulted in back-to-back championships in 2012 and 2013. The 2013, I mean, one of the great NBA finals ever, the Heat and Spurs. Everybody remembers Ray Allen's shot. Right. That only forced overtime in game 6. The Heat still had to win that game and then come back 2 nights later and win game 7. And you mentioned it last year in the bubble in Orlando. Everything is weird and odd and surreal about the restarting, the ending, then the restarting of the season, and then a totally unexpected but enjoyed run to the NBA Finals. So all of them have their great place in Heat history. I think our most popular team nationally was last year because it was an ensemble cast. It was a team-oriented effort led by the hard-nosed Jimmy Butler and Goran Dragic and a whole core of young and rising players. So it captured the country's imagination, where our big 3 teams were like the evil empire. Everybody but Heat Nation hated us. Heat Nation loved us. And nobody will ever forget those 4 teams.
Right. Those that's so incredible to hear. For me, like LeBron James, I mean, I grew up ever since I was young. Like LeBron was the guy. So that's like a hero to me in sports. So, and it's funny that you mentioned the 2013 finals, because I just went back and watched the entirety of the fourth quarter of that the game 6 with the Ray Allen shot that forced overtime, and I was like, man, what an electric game. Maybe it's just because we've been watching games so long without like fans, but I got goosebumps rewatching that game. Every moment was so important.
Indeed, it shows you how great you've got to be to win at that level and games like that. And one of my favorite moments was the Chris Bosh anticipation of the Spurs inbounds play.
Yes.
A great cross-court pass into the deep corner to Danny Green, and Bosh sees it happening at the other elbow, makes a 360 turn, sprints into the corner, the greatest closeout in the history of closeout. For the Spurs. So many big plays and so many great players and great coaches in that particular series.
So many. And I don't think people realize, and I didn't even realize myself going back and rewatching, how many big plays Chris Bosh himself made. Not like not huge scoring plays or anything like that, but rebounds, defensive plays, like you said, and he made a huge impact on that game. And also something interesting, like you talked about last year's team, how electrifying they were, and obviously led by Jimmy Butler, but it's a name that you mentioned, like Goran Dragic. I don't think people realize how good Goran is and how important he was to that team. I remember watching that last year and not even realizing myself how great of a basketball player and leader he is, but just that team overall, like the young energy and that must be super exciting to watch night in and night out for sure.
It's great to work in the NBA. Think about it. There's 30 jobs like the one I have. So to be with this franchise, from its inception, to watch it all unfold is truly, the experience of a lifetime as a broadcaster. You never know when the magic moments happen. Dwayne Wade, it's hard to pinpoint a game or two games, but two of my favorite games were in a season the Heat did not go to the playoffs. Dwayne Wade's last two games in a Heat uniform, the final coronation at home. He had this 30-point game against Philadelphia. It ended with him standing on the table right in front of us.
Right.
You couldn't imagine a moment any better than that. And then we get on a plane to play game 82 of the and final regular season game in Brooklyn the very next night. Wade had hurt his knee jumping up onto the table to celebrate the Philly win. He was a game time decision to even play in Brooklyn the following night. Meanwhile, you had Carmelo Anthony, Chris Paul, and LeBron James courtside seats to watch Dwayne's last game against a Brooklyn team that was on their way to the playoffs, yet it felt like the Barclays Center was a Heat home game. I called it the greatest 19-point loss we've ever seen. He got blown out in the game, but Wade late in the third quarter finished with a triple-double. It was only the fourth of his career, and that's how he ended his career. And just seeing him make the pass, it's an iconic photo now. He made the pass to Udonis Haslem, who barely played that season. Haslem takes the jumper from the top of the circle free throw line area, and Wade immediately turns around with his hand in the air, already celebrating the shot that's going to give him the triple-double. It did go in. It's a great T-shirt, great poster, but more than anything, just a great moment that all in Heat Nation shared in. I loved the call I was able to make. It was historic and just as fitting a way for a Hall of Fame player to end his career that we've ever been a part of.
Yeah, one of my good friends actually was at that game. He's a huge Heat fan, and he was at Barclays that night. And like you said, it was more of a Heat home game at that point. But yeah, incredible to hear. Now we talked a little bit about this, so my next question is fairly similar, and like you said, this might be very hard to pinpoint. But what would you consider to be the highlight of your career?
Well, I think just, there have been many highlights. Being the radio announcer at Providence College for the 1987 Final Four, coached by Rick Pitino, led by Billy Donovan. There were some things in my dad, who got me started in this life of sports, was about a month or 6 weeks away from passing away. The 87 Final Four was the last great thing in sports and life that we shared. So it always stands out. And to have gone back for the 25-year reunion of that team was special. And then to go on and again, be fortunate enough to get an NBA job back in 1988 and to still be doing it. I think doing it at a level that we've been trying to reach our whole career, and just appreciating it, humbled by it, and still enjoy every single night we get a chance to do it. So the highlight is getting to Miami, staying here all these years, and enjoying it all these years. It made me understand and respect all these years later that as a young man, a long time ago, I guessed right that this was the profession I wanted to embark on.
That's amazing. It seems like every team you work for, they end up winning, Eric. So I think I think
there's been plenty of losing along the way.
Yeah,
and trust me, I think any announcer would tell you that you've got to do your best work if you work for a team. When you're with a team that is not having a great season, because you got to bring your enthusiasm and your energy and not get distracted by the losing. I always say suffer with your team, not at them.
Right.
But I think we all know how much easier and how much more enjoyable the job is when you're with a team that wins, but you actually have to do your best work when you're with a team that doesn't win as
No
much.
doubt. No doubt. So, Eric, what is the best piece of advice you can give someone who is pursuing a career in sports media?
Well, I think, it's hard to give one piece of advice that fits all. For some of us, we know exactly what it is we want to do, and you try to hone in on those skills and get into a position where you could work on those skills so you can get better at those skills. So you want to be open-minded at first as you're selecting a career path, and then dogged in your determination to pursue that career path. And obviously, you can't be afraid to relocate, to travel, to miss holidays, birthdays, weddings, et
Right.
cetera. But it's a career, I think, that takes a lot from you, and it gives you so much more in return. So it's worth it. And I encourage my own children and anybody else I talk to, whatever that career path is, I hope you're passionate about it, because that natural energy that comes with a passion for what you do is a great thing. It's really a gift.
That's awesome to hear. So thank you for that, Eric. And as a multiple time winner, have you been to awards weekend?
I finished runner up about as many times as the Buffalo Bills did. Gene Deckerhoff dominated this award, as well he should have, in the state of Florida for a long, long time.
Mhm.
But when I was fortunate enough to win in back-to-back years, I think 2018, 2019,
Mhm.
I did come to Winston-Salem. And
Awesome.
I really believe this: until you are a part of that weekend, you have no idea how special it is. I sort of equate it to renewing your vows with your profession, because you come into contact with, so many of your peers. Some you have never met, some you know very well, some you're meeting for the very first time. Some are bigger on the food chain, some are just starting out. But the interaction with all, the exchanging of friendship and knowledge, and passing on knowledge and experience to the next wave of broadcasters coming up, and celebrating your business with some great people, both in print journalism and broadcast journalism. It's one of the great broadcast experiences anybody could have. So I always encourage, even if you don't win, but especially if you are fortunate enough to be a winner,
Right.
you should attend. You will be thankful that you did. I know I have, and I'm eager to come back for a third time now.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you for that, Dave. If you want to give a shout out to anyone, or you want to leave us with any closing remarks, you can go ahead and do that now.
Well, I just want to obviously thank the people I work for and with, the Miami Heat organization, with Fox Sports Sun, soon to be Bally Sports Sun, and with so many people that have helped me along in my career. From Don Martin, the first general manager at WHCU Radio, that gave me the Cornell football, basketball, and lacrosse job right out of college for $10,000 a year. I thank you. You got me started. And to everybody else, Chuck Wilson and hundreds of others that have helped us along the way. And thank you for everything
Of
that you're doing,
course.
and
Of
this
course.
this great project you're working on.
Of course, no problem. Thank you. Thank you, Eric, again, and congratulations. I'm sorry I have to end with this, but I'm actually a Yankees, Giants, and Nets fan. So completely polar opposite to all of your affiliations. So I thought that was funny when you were explaining how you were a Mets, a Knicks, and Jets fan. But thank you again for joining us, and congratulations.
I remember as a high school senior walking up to the ticket window at the Nassau County Coliseum and actually buying a ticket for Game 7 of the ABA Finals. Julius Erving's Nets,
Yes.
David Thompson's Denver Nuggets. Cool stuff growing up in New York back then, to be able to just
Yeah.
go buy a ticket to an ABA championship game. So I grew up watching Dr. J and the Nets, and some earlier Net teams. Listen, if it bounced, I was watching.
Awesome. Awesome. Good to hear. And no surprise there. Well, thank you again, Eric, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.